Welcome to Summit Dodge Tommy's Hockey on 95.7 The Wolf, and it's kind of alumni corner today, and it's a fitting time to do this interview with Gary Smith, a former alumnus of St. Thomas University, also an author, which we're going to get to in just a little bit. Gary, thanks very much for doing this today.
Hey, no problem.
Really appreciate your time this morning. Now, first, we will talk about the book that came out earlier this year, Saving Face, The Art and History of the Goalie Mask. Tell me the genesis of this book, Gary, where it came from.
Well, it started, I made goalie masks, and one of my customers, we were discussing the design, and I was discussing some of the background to them, and he said, geez, you know a lot about this stuff, you should write a book about it. And I thought about it, and that would be kind of a fun project. So I proceeded from there.
Now, when you start with it, then of course you ended up having a collaborator. How did you guys come together?
Well, I started this. This is back in the late 90s when I started it, and I went up to the Hockey Hall of Fame, and I talked to them, and I did the research in the archives, and I knew some people within the industry making masks, and here and there I kind of dabbled and did interviews, and then it was always, having children and work and everything else, it was kind of something I just sort of did in spare time, and then I got a call from Jim Hines and Jim McRae from Montreal, and they said they had this idea for a book, and would I like to be part of it? And I said, yeah, but I've got it half done already. So we just jumped in together and went from there.
Of course, we're talking to you about the book, and I'm sure one of the most amazing things for most people is that up until about 50 years ago, when Mr. Plante donned his mask, goaltenders weren't wearing that protective gear on their face. This is an interesting weekend. A lot of people talking about the anniversary, which is coming up. I guess it's great timing to have two things like that coincide, the anniversary, and of course now this opportunity to talk about the not just Jacques' mask, but other masks throughout history.
Yeah, well, the first mask, of course, was the most groundbreaking, and it was it's an interesting story behind it, and the coach told Blake didn't want him to wear it. They did, many GMs at the time and coaches didn't want their goalies to wear masks because they didn't think they'd be identifiable from the stands, and there was a myriad of reasons why they couldn't see the puck, and it would make them afraid of the puck, and all of which proved to be nonsense, especially since goalies were identified later on in the 60s and 70s by their masks more than anything else. So it was an evolution in that sense, and it's kind of an icon in that people still look at masks, whether they're in the movies with our Jason movies or whether they're the old-time goalies, and even, the new goalies, of course, their artwork is more how they identify themselves, too, so.
I grew up watching hockey in the 70s, and I grew up watching my beloved Boston Bruins and Jerry Cheevers is that's one of my favorite masks of all times. But going through the book, was there any particular one that stands out to you? I mean, there's certain ones, I'm sure, for certain reasons that stand out to you.
Yeah, well, of course, as you mentioned, the Cheevers mask, and that's on the cover. It's featured on the cover of the book because it was groundbreaking in that, he started putting the stitches on. It was mostly as a joke. He wanted to get out of a practice, and he got hit with a shot that wouldn't have hurt a canary, and he rolled around on the ice and got up and went down to the room, and, his trainer put a stitch mark on his mask, and from there it grew, and then that was really more by accident than design, became the first mask that was ever decorated, and there any sort of artwork on it. And then, of course, the 70s masks. For me, I loved Gilles Gratton because it was, though not a memorable goaltender, his mask was one of the most memorable because he had, he painted like a snarling lion's face, and he played for the Rangers, and it was the first time they were moving away from just straight-up graphics of the team logos and the team colors and moving towards artwork that was just completely different.
I know for myself, it was one of my favorite masks too, because it was, for that period, it was just so different.
Yeah, and it, and it suited his personality as well, and that's again part of the masks. The original, or probably the pioneer of mask art and mask making, Greg Harrison, did that. He took into consideration a goalie's personality and everything when he came up with his designs for his masks back then in the 70s, and they're still memorable today.
Now, when we take a look at moving from the 70s into the 80s, when we started going to the sort of cage masks, when that transition started, the identity, the personality was sometimes lost because, of course, all you had was the cage in front.
Oh yeah, it was a dark age. When I played, it was funny because when I came to Stu, I remember talking to Leroy Washburn and saying I would sign a waiver, let me wear my own masks, and no, I had to wear the CSA helmet and cage, and that was they weren't going to budge on that, and I just hated the fact that I had to wear that, and it looked so generic. And I guess like most goaltenders, I was somewhat vain, and I just hate the idea of wearing something that, the forwards are all wearing these same helmets, and I want to stand out and be different.
That's part one of our interview with Gary Smith, author of Saving Face, The Art and History of the Goalie Mask, the co-author of the book. Gary now lives in Grand Falls, New Brunswick, a former St. Thomas alumnus who graciously gave up some of his time to talk to us about his love affair with the goaltender mask, and we are going to continue our conversation with Gary Smith. The interview with Gary Smith is going to continue in the second period. Of course, we got some more exciting Summit Dodge Tommy's hockey coming up here with Randy Corey on 95.7 The Wolf. The second period from the Dalhousie Arena is coming up just momentarily. It is Summit Dodge Tommy's Hockey on 95.7 The Wolf.